Shivansh, have you shared the PPT?
Yeah, in the chat as well as in the WhatsApp.
Okay, just a minute, then we'll begin. Okay, so let's begin now. Oh, all right. So I'll create the basic, highlight the basic things. Okay, so these are the basic ones. And now let's insert some text. Okay, and now let's look over here. So yeah, I guess this part is clear to everyone. Okay, so the first topic for today is going to be CSS variables. I'm pretty sure that you all know, like at least for those in class 11 and 12, you have Python in your curriculum, right? So there are variables in Python. What a variable does is it has a certain value, and you can access that value, and then you can perform stuff, right? So what's the real need for variables in CSS? Now let's say I have this. Let's say I want to style my body of the website, and like let's say I want to add a background color. I can add red over here, and then this will turn red, right? But what's a neater way to do it? Let's say I want to style it, but like I only want to style certain components. So okay, so let's say I add it only to paragraphs, and now if I create a div and write lorem 100, so you can see that only the selector for which I applied the property, its values got changed, right? So let's say you want to apply it to this one as well. So what could you do? Now you have two options. Let's say you want to remember that you want to use red color everywhere. So what you could do is you could go like this, and then you could like copy the same thing and save it and run it. So this works, right? But let's say I want to have a centralized system. Let's say I want to give my selectors property some values, but I want to control them centrally. So let's say for today I want my paragraph and div to look red in color, but tomorrow if I want them to look purple or pink in color, how can I do that? I can go and change it everywhere where I use red for the paragraph and or like locate it. Or what's a neater way to do it? You could use CSS variables. Now, see, the point is that CSS variables makes it easier to change the value for that property wherever you have used that value. So let's say you have 100 elements where you're using the same value. So it'll change directly for all those 100 elements for which you have used that variable. So how will we access it? Now, to use a CSS variable, first we declare it inside the root element. So now what's a root element? You all know about the HTML element, right? So like the HTML element, okay, first I'll explain the HTML element. Now what the HTML element does is it's quite simple, right? So like the body element would select the body. So HTML element would select HTML. Now you could do the same thing using the root element, but what's the case is that the root element is sort of more preferred according to the W3 markup, W3C markup. That's why for declaring variables, I suggest that you use the root element. Now, okay, I'll show this one property right now very quickly. I'll add a button over here, actually a link. Uh, Jump, and then, yeah, and then let's say I add some more text over here, lorem 1000, and then another lorem 100. And after this div, let's say I want to add an image, and then I'll just go to pixel and get an image quickly. As I'll take this one and I'll paste the address. Now check this. This is what it looks right now, right? And let's say I go over here, and then let's say I want to like jump to the image. Upon clicking the button, I can do it using this, right? I'll add the jump ID to the image now. And now, if I use it, here's the button. Oh, that's why it was creating an issue. Yeah, so this is what it looks right now, right? If I click the button, I'll jump to that portion, but this is quite rough, right? So let's say you want to make it visually pleasing. How would you do that? Now, what you could use is scroll behavior. Now, what scroll behavior will give you certain values. So like by default, it's like what the browser decides. So like most of them have it to like straight away jump. So what you could do is you could use scroll behavior smooth. And now if I use this, let's reload it, then you can see that it's not really jumping straight away, right? It's creating a scroll effect. So that's quite visually pleasing. So like if you have uh, paginations or something else like that, so you could use this property and value to like make it look smooth. Any questions so far? I know the page doesn't look really good right now. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, so I'll take that as a no. All right. So getting back to CSS variables now, how will you declare a variable? So this is how you declare a variable. So now the basic thing is you have to put two hyphens and then you write whatever variable name you want. Okay. So it's not necessary that I write variable name. I'll just put these two and then I'll write, let's say, primary. Okay. And then I'll write, let's say, red. And then how do I use this now? Okay, now if you saw, right, as soon as I created this variable over here and now I access that value over here. How did I do it? I declared that this is my variable, and then inside the parentheses, the brackets, whatever. So inside that I wrote the variable name, and what it does is it refers to this variable which has the certain value, and then it replaces it with that value, and that's getting applied. So if I like do the same thing over here, what it will do, it will take that, it will access this value for primary and it'll apply it over there. And you can see how it got applied wherever I wanted it to. Now, what's the benefit? When you're creating large websites, let's say you have 100 buttons, but the 100 buttons are located in different hierarchies, right? So let's say first one is like directly in your body, but let's say the next one is like inside a div in the body. So what would so you I think you would not really want to like have a centralized access to it. So what you could do is you could create this a variable with certain values, and then you could use those values for each and every button. So what it does is you'll so let's say in future if you want to change the colors or the dimensions or anything else, you can directly access the values in the root element. It's quite easy, right? Like let's say if I have 10 variables for defining the values over here, it's quite simpler to just change it in one place instead of like hundreds of places. So like you could so when you're making responsive websites, it's quite beneficial. Now I'll also explain what's responsive. So is there any questions so far? Guys, please ask questions if you have any, because CSS variables is an important topic. All right, I take that as a no. Okay, so after CSS variables and root element and the scroll property, what we come to is making a responsive website. I'll like what I'll do is I'll just comment this entire thing out and just give me a minute. Okay, yeah. So let's, yeah, so this is our website right now. It's blank like I wanted it to. I'll make it visually pleasing right now. Just wait for a minute. Copy image address. Okay, now let's create a div and like style it and all. All right. This is my body right now. I'll add an image in the background. So this is what it looks right now. But we wanted that filter, right? So I'll add this property called opacity. What opacity does is it allows you to make it lighter. So let's say if I change this right now to a different shade, you can see the effect. Oh, it and really do it. Yeah, so I guess you can see the change over here. Let's just make it a little more prominent. Yeah, so I think you can see how the opacity thing is affecting it. What it does is I show you certain things. Now, if I comment this out, now I only have a background image, right? So I want a filter, so I use this, and using the pseudo element selector, I added this background image. Now I had to use the position element and then the insert to like make it appear over here. And then basic background image properties and their values. And what opacity does is, see, if I don't have opacity, then if I don't have opacity specified over here, then the like the image, it's like covering, it's like, yeah, so what the image does, the image is kind of blocking the filter. It's not really blocking it, but the filter is getting masked by it. So what you can do is you can use the opacity property. Now opacity accepts values from 0 to 1. Okay. So like you can have like 0.555 or like anything, like even 0.0000 or like anything else like that. And then like this is how it's going to affect it. It's basically making the background, like this one, the image over here is becoming, the content is becoming lighter, and that's why you can like see the filter now. I'll change this to white because white looks sort of better. Yeah, or let's just make it black. All right, so this is what it looks right now. Now I had my I does anyone have any questions so far about the like how I created this? Now you could do the same thing by creating different elements and then like styling it, but it's more this is a more efficient way to do it. And in case you have any problem, then you can ask us. Yeah, so let's just go to our container dot container. But and I'll add a color. Oh, let's say 00 after 00. Okay, now let's bring it, let's increase the size 500 by 400 pixels. Okay, now I'll bring it to the center. Now, how I'm going to do it, just look at it carefully. Don't worry, Shivansh will explain transform property. And there's a more efficient way of doing this, but it's using CSS Flexbox, or you could even use CSS grids, but we'll cover it later on. And then look, I'll use minus 50%, comma, minus 50%. This is getting centered right now, and I'll make this a little lighter. So this is what it looks right now. Okay, and a suggestion, don't try to use position absolute for centering elements or like such stuff, because it's not really efficient. You could have done this very easily and much more effectively using Flexbox. We'll be teaching Flexbox later on, so till then, if you use this, it's not an issue. But once we introduce the concept, if you feel that Flexbox is confusing, because it is actually confusing for like for the beginners, so just try to give it some time and you'll get used to it. Okay, so I have this right now. Okay, and I think we discussed this tag over here in on the first few sessions. Now, could anyone tell me what this tag is? Why we need this tag over here? You could unmute or you could type the answer in the chat.
It kind of sizes the website with the device, depending on
Okay,
what
so
device.
yeah. Okay, so what this does is it's necessary for like creating responsive websites. Okay, and like just use this tag. You don't really need to go in depth into this. But yeah, if you want to check it out, then you can like go to Google and like check um, what is the purpose of. But yeah, your answer was technically correct. I will copy this. Yeah, and this result, and you'll get this, and you could check this out. Now, why am I like showing a specific tag over here? Because this is very important. You like just give it a read over here. What this basically does is it allows you to make responsive websites. Like you have decided the scale and all over here. You have specified the like what you want to, how you want to present the website and the meta tags. Now We had already explained that meta tags are tags containing information for the website. So like these are processed on the server end, not really the server end, but like it's not really displayed. It's used to like modify the content of the website or like explain what the website is about and all. Yeah. So since you have this tag over here, you could like make it responsive. Now, let's say I write some text over here. Lorem 50. Okay. So this looks like this right now, and I style it. This was a paragraph. Right? I'll put this into a paragraph. Yeah. And I'll this is what it looks like right now. Justify text align. Justify. Okay. This is what it looks like right now. But let's say you know the inspect element, right? The dev tools. Now, when you look at this in the phone, you can see like this is covering the entire width, right? Now, what if I don't want it to? What if, let's say, I want there to be like a padding in the left and right side, or I just want the box to like occupy a little lesser space. Now, how would I do that? You could like what you would do in this case is you'd use CSS media queries. Now, what are media queries? As you change your viewport, now viewport is basically your screen. So let's say you're on a phone, so it would have a different dimension. And if you're on a laptop, it would have a certain different dimension. Okay, so you can do that using CSS media queries. I'll explain the syntax, and it's very simple. Also it's kind of required for you so that you can understand flexbox well. So like do not try to skip this part, because see, earlier the responsiveness was not really a factor like 10 years or something back, because at that time you just really wanted a website which could work on a laptop and all, because you didn't really have touch phones, or like even if you had it, it wasn't really widespread, right? But nowadays everything is about being responsive. If there's a website even for like showing the top 10 games, it has to be responsive, because it's probably going to be most accessed on a mobile phone. That's why you'll want to create a responsive website. Now, let's say, um, okay, so one of the most important things about creating responsive websites is knowing breakpoints. Now, what are breakpoints? Now, has anyone ever worked with Bootstrap here? Like, if you have, then like raise your hand. It's not an issue. Like I won't really say anything if you use Bootstrap, because I'm like it's not an issue if you're using a library at this point, because I think we have crossed 6 or 7 sessions, so you all know HTML CSS quite well. Okay, so no one. Anyway, yeah, so there are some standard breakpoints. Now, what are breakpoints? Now, I think you know that your devices have a certain dimension, right? They have a certain width, they have a certain height. Now, when I specified width and height over here, I specified certain dimensions, like 400 by 500 pixels. And now that's how it got rendered over here. But let's say you have a phone of, so there are some certain, so let's say a phone of 286 by like 286 by 500 pixels or something like that. Now that's not really a device width. Um, it's not really a device width, I think. But there are some standard breakpoints. I'll go to the get bootstrap website and like show you the standard ones. Now, at this point, I'm not really encouraging you all to check out, use Bootstrap in your projects, and like definitely don't use it for your project submissions. But yeah, you can check out Bootstrap. It's a good thing to know. And like, if you want to make something responsive, then like Bootstrap is your go-to tool. And there is also Tailwind Css. Yeah, this is Tailwind Css. Now these basically allow you to make responsive websites quite easily. You can do the same thing using CSS Flexbox Media Queries and CSS Grid. Now even these are written using those, but like yeah, this is basically pre-written code, so like it's going to make it easier for you to use stuff anyway. So I'll go to Bootstrap and then I'll go to layout and I'll go to breakpoints. Okay. These are some of the breakpoints which Bootstrap has defined for its containers. Now, containers are an altogether different thing in Bootstrap. So, like, don't go. I'll not go into that. But yeah, these breakpoints over here are like it's like kind of standards. It's like at least I do that. Let's say I'm making a website. I sort of have a habit of referring to Bootstrap for these dimensions because I tend to forget it anyway. So like you could use these dimensions to like define how your website's different components will look at different viewport widths and heights. Now there are different ways of making like stuff, and like you could make your website look more the code more complex and like more definitive. But yeah, at this point I'll only like suggest you to like use these two. Now max width and min width are not really confined to CSS media queries. Okay. Yeah, max width and min width are not really confined to CSS media queries. You can also use this in your and for your any other element. But and I think the like this is making it quite clear what max width does is your elements like size can change, but it will going to be the max that it can go to is like the specified value, and then that's the same for min, but like sort of opposite, like the minimum it can go to is that specified value, after which it will stop. Okay, so I'll now go to now how do you use media queries? Yeah, this is how. Okay, firstly I'll like explain it through the W3 Schools website because it has a really good documentation. I think it will benefit you all. Okay, so this is what media query code looks like. Okay, so this is you use @media to like define that that you want to use media queries, and then you'll use the syntax. And now only screen and is it's like a value, not really a value, but like it's a format. Okay, uh, not even a format. I'm not getting the right word, but I guess you got the point. And then you specify the property which you want to refer to for like changing the content appearance, and then you'll specify the value for. So what this does is when you're as like as long as the width is 600 pixels, it will refer to the code inside this. Now once it crosses 600 pixels, it will now refer to a different styling. And then you can I'll actually send the link. Yeah, I'll send the link so that you all can check it out. And I again repeat, I'm again saying this. See, like if you want to learn like HTML, CSS, and all those other things very well, then like W3 Schools is a great resource. And then you can also refer to Geeks for Geeks because they have certain things are explained quite well over there. So yeah, you can check out these websites. Anyway, I'll come over here and I'll change some styling. @media only theme and max width, and max width I'll say 576 pixels. Now what I'm doing, like look at it carefully. I'll copy this. I'll change the values over here. Okay. Now look at this. Oh wait, I'll change it for some other element. Container. I think it will be better if I use it for container. Wait, why is it not working? I always seem to mess it up. Yeah. I just copy this. Okay, Teja. Yeah. So you can see this. Okay, I messed up the code somewhere. Okay, I'm not really in the mood right now. Check it where I messed it up. Anyway, so you can see what this does is you change the width, the viewport width, the like the appearance changes, right? So let's say so this is like the entire concept of CSS Media Queries. Now I'm changing the color over here because like it's it's the easiest way of demonstrating this. I could like also do something like this where I change the font size to, let's say, 100 pixels. Now it's looking okay right now. And then if I decrease this, you can see how this becomes really humongous. That's because I changed the values over here, right? Does anyone have any question in this part?
Yes. So where exactly are you viewing the page? Like, is it an extension or something?
No, it's in my main CSS code. See, this is the whole thing about CSS media queries. Okay, so whatever is over here is for it's defined for literally everything. Okay, whatever is in the main area, it's defined for literally everything. So let's say I don't have this block. Then if I check this, it looks like this. Okay, because that's the main area. But if I
I'm
come
talking
over
about
here,
this, like where you're actually viewing the content for different devices and widths. So where is that?
okay, so this thing.
Yes, 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 exactly.
Okay, oh, this is the like Control Shift I. You hit Control Shift I and then you get this preview. This is the Google Dev tool. And then using the Dev tool, you can actually see how your website looks at different viewports. Now you can enter it yourself. You can like change stuff. You can throttle it. You can change the view, and then you can select some devices over here, the standard devices, and you can add some more devices by clicking there and like selecting a few more devices. You got it now?
Gaurav, I
Yeah.
just
Is
to
there a
tell
link
them.
for this? If there is, could you please share?
No, there's no link. You right. What you do is you do right click, and then this
I
inspect
guess
thing, right?
just tell them about the
Oh, right.
button which toggles the responsive
Okay,
tool,
okay, got it.
like, because it is not by
Yes.
default.
Yeah. So
Right.
you. Yeah. So right click and then inspect, and this here, and then you have the Google DevTools provide you a lot of stuff. Okay, you can use this and like select elements to check how what their properties are and their respective values. and you can check out the code over here. And like I'll actually show something. Wait, I'll select this element for now. And then yeah, if I like want to mess with this, let's say I'll write lorem, and you saw how it changed over here, right? But now the difference is it is only getting changed temporarily for you. If I reload the website, then it returns to its original state. Because see, what this does is it allows you to change stuff temporarily. But let's say if this was like um let's say if this allowed you to change the server's content or like the place where it's stored, then it would have created a havoc, because people would have literally messed with every website. Yeah, so I guess you all have seen website like those Twitter posts or something that's like that, and like famous people or like influential people writing stupid stuff. So there's a probable chance like that people actually either Photoshop it or use this dev tool to like change the content and then take a screenshot and make it viral. So yeah, that's how you can actually like say that the screenshots are not really authentic every time. Also, I'd like to discuss this thing. Now, user agent style sheet. I gave a question in the examination, right? User agent style sheet. Yeah. So what user agent style sheet does is it's the default style sheet for the browser. It has certain settings and all. So yeah, and what you do is like when you update the CSS code, then you are actually like redefining what this code this already had defined for those elements. And you can use something like normalize.css or reset style sheet. Now why I'm talking about these is because when you're using CSS Media Queries, you would want your website to look the best in different browsers, right? Now, let's say I'm using Chrome. So Chrome has its certain presets already. So like it has defined certain like certain values for certain properties of elements, and that's how it's appearing to me right now. So let's say a default button on Google might look different from a default button on Safari or Firefox. So if let's say you wanted to like appear uniformly everywhere, what you could do is you could use normalize.css. It's taking a while, just a minute. Or you could use reset style sheet. Okay, wait, I'll actually just share the link because it's taking some time. Okay, wait. Acha, so now I send the normalize.css file link and I'll share it for reset style sheet. Okay, so what does it do? Now, there's a difference between normalized CSS and CSS. Also, there's no issue with you people using these two things, because I actually encourage you to use normalized CSS at least, so that you can like make it look uniform on different browsers. See, cross-browser compatibility is sort of an important issue. Maybe most of the users use Chrome, but you would definitely want your users on other browsers to have the similar experience, right? So that's why you would want cross-browser compatibility. And this is your normalize.css. And I could go to this code over here. I'll show this page. Yeah, so normalize.css, you can check this out, and then they have the code, and you could like download it and use it. What it does is it makes your makes like redefine certain elements, like you can see over here, and makes it look uniform on different browsers. Whereas reset style sheet, what it does is it sets the values for each and every property to like not even default, to like literally nothing. So like you get the control over each and every element, and you get to redefine everything. Now there are different cases where you would want, there are different instances, and like there's it really depends upon you whether you want to use it or not. You can just use normal CSS and like avoid using these files by importing them. But yeah, this is a thing which you could use. So I think I explained the media queries, but does anyone have any question with how it's getting triggered or something? Please ask questions. Do not keep quiet if you are unclear about something. Okay, I take it that no one is having any questions. All right, so I'll just like explain the stuff, some of the things over here because it's not really going to make some sense right now. Uh, @media properties, and I'm sorry, my internet is quite slow right now. Acha, so one thing, whatever code you write over here, you will write the exact same thing over here. The only difference is, let's say you want to change the, let's say you only want to change the font size. You don't want to change the color and text. So what you would do is you would only specify the property for which you want to change using the media queries and its respective value. You will not specify color and text align again because it's already specified in the main body. So it's getting applied by default. But let's say if I wanted to change it now, I could actually do it. I can like make it this, no, not green. I can make it yellow. No, yellow is not maybe going to appear. Yeah, so this is looking yellow right now. So you can like change values, properties and like their respective values using media queries. But it's not a big deal if you like still write this. It's going to act the same. But what it does is it's adding an extra line of code which could have been avoided, right? And the smaller your code is, faster your website's getting loaded, and like it's a big deal. Like even milliseconds can like affect how many visitors you get on your website, right? So that's an important thing. And yeah, I'll go to this one. You can also check out developers.mozilla.firefox, and like you can see that it's not a very simple thing. You can actually make this much more complicated. You can have nested conditional rules and all those things. I'll not really go into this. I leave it to you people to check this out. I'll send the link. So why is this getting redirected to Sean everything? Yeah. And okay, I'll show one thing though. I talked about max width, right? And now I'll talk about min width. Now, background and okay, wait. Yeah, I'll add one more block. Yeah. So you can see how this changes. Okay, Stella. Yeah. So when the minimum, okay, this is going to work weird. Yeah, when your minimum width, what this does is like let's say your minimum width is Okay, so when your minimum width is not this 600, what's it right now? It's 212. So this is getting applied, right? Because as long as you have a max width of 800, you want purple to get applied. That's why the paragraph's background is purple in color. But if I like make it 600, then you can see as soon as I change to 600, what this does is it ignores this one. Now, even though it satisfies the condition, this one is much more important right now, right? Because min width is given over here. So min width is 600, and so it's becoming red. So from 0 pixels to 600 pixels, it's purple. Then 600 to 800 pixels, it's red, because no, actually not really, it's not really necessary. Yeah, it's not necessary. Okay. Yeah, so as long as it's under 600 pixel, it's purple. And as you cross the 600 mark, it's becoming red in color. And if I keep increasing the size, it's not really it's not really having any effect, because see, I've defined the min width. So like it could also be, even if I like make the width to say 2000, it's still going to be red, because I think it's quite clear that min width means after 600, whatever is defined over here gets applied. Any other thing, if not important, is getting ignored. Is that understandable? Guys, please respond.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
All right. Acha, does anyone have any doubt with the before and after pseudo selectors? I'll take that as a no. And yeah, and then we discuss the opacity and how it's going to create an effect. And we talked about position and its like related properties have been already discussed. Shivansh will discuss the transform property. And yeah, and okay, what's inset? So basically, you know how we have top, left, right, and bottom for the position property, right? So what inset does is inset changes that for all the four properties. So let's say you do top, left, right, bottom 50% for position absolute. So you could do the same thing by using inset and writing 50%. So like it gets applied for all those properties. Is that clear?
Yes.
All right. And I would encourage you all to check out more about media queries. See, media queries is a very vast topic. So as long as you experiment with things, it's good. And also, okay, so this is where I end my part. Shivansh will take over and he'll do his part. Also, like if you have not given the exam right by now, it's requested that you give it soon, or like at least inform us when you will be able to, because it's important that we get records of all the members' work, and like and whether they are able to keep up with the pace and all. Yeah. Okay, Shivansh, you can take over now.
Oh yeah. Okay. So here I have a basic HTML and CSS file, and today we will be doing a float and uh, transform property. So let's start with float. So I have a tail inside this file. This is what image. Let's go to this so yeah. Um, let's give background color to make it there. Okay, so here we basically have an image along with some text. But suppose I want to wrap this text around this image. So we can use the float property for this. And okay, just a second. So as you can see here, let me, yeah. So you can see it's like this, but as soon as I uh, apply the property of float, you can see that this text is wrapping around the image. And what's actually happening is that you can understand it like the image is kind of uh, okay, it's going above the level, and now the text is kind of wrapping around. So let me show you another example. Now you can, there are three properties, three values for float: left, then you can have right, and then you can have none, which is by default. So let's have left for now. So let me give you an another example for this. So let's say we have uh, 5 divs. Yeah, let's do this. And let's just comment this out for now. Now I want height to be 200 pixels, width to be 200 pixels. Uh, background color will be different. Okay, let's have a conversion. And margin as 10 pixels. Yeah, so this is what we have now. Okay, I want to tell you show you one thing. Let's say I have Lauren 5, and we have div and a child is 1. And let's say we have opacity as 0.5. So what this will do, like you can see that the background as well as the content is content's opacity is changed. But if you want only the background to be changed, so for that we use RGBA. So A is basically the alpha value, which is you can understand it like opacity itself. It ranges from 0 to 1. 1 is opaque and 0 is transparent. So yeah, this is okay. So now let me declare the float property for the first div as float left. So here you can see that the, okay, let me give it a border. Solid yellow. Yeah, so you can see that this div is kind of floating and like a cloud, and underneath it is the second div. Okay, but suppose you want this div to be here and this, the div which is below it, to be on the right hand side. So you can do it using
Bro, we can't hear you.
So here is the first div, second div. Like now, right now, all of them are floating towards the right, and you can, like right now the clear is towards the left. So what this means is that the third div should add a line break if there is any content which is floating towards the left. As soon as I do it right, then what happens is that it adds a line break, because the second div as well as the first div is floating towards the right. And if we, and there is left, right, and then we generally use both, because in that way it is considering both left and right. And if we add this property to, let's say, all the divs, then what will happen is all the divs will be on the right hand side and each of the div on a new line. So this is float and clear. So any doubts so far?
No.
Oh. Okay, so now let's move on to, so this is it for float and clear. Now let's move on to transforms. So let me comment all of this out. Okay, so let me define the height and width for the box. And background okay, so let's discuss transform properties. So let's start with translate. So what translate does is that it moves an object with respect to its width. So let me give you an example. As Orono asked in the previous session, like how we can position a absolute element to the center of the page. So we can define 50% and left as 50%. So right now the div is not centered. Yeah, the div is not centered toward like you might think that we have defined top as 50% and left and as 50%. So it should be in the center of the page. But what actually is happening, is that the top part, which you can see the white space between the top of the page and the top edge of the box, is actually 50% of the page, and the white space between the left side of the page and this left edge of the box is 50%. So we need to move this box 50% upwards and 50% leftwards with respect to its width. So if we have transform as minus 50% and minus 50%, yeah, now it is centered. So what this is doing is that it is moving, like this is 400 pixel, right? The height and width is 400 pixels. So this transform property is moving this box 200 pixels upward and 200 pixels leftwards. So as soon as I save it, now it is centered. So this is translate. So you can basically move it. You can have, let's say, okay. So this is translate. You can define the X and Y value. So the first one, let's say 10 and 10 or 50 pixels. So this is basically, okay, let me remove this. Yeah, so it's moving 50 pixels from the top and 10 pixels from the left. So you can use pixel, but mostly we use percentage. And this is the translate, but we also have translate X. So what translate X means is that it will only move with respect to the x-axis. So we can define it as 100 pixels. So this white space on the left side of the box is 100 pixel. And similarly, we can define it as minus 100 pixel. So it's going out of the page, like towards the leftward. So you can define it minus 100 pixel. And so this is, and similarly, we have translate y, which moves it with respect to the y-axis. So yeah, that's what translate. Next we have rotate. Now, what rotate does is that, as the name suggests, it rotates the element. So if I say 90 degree, let me add some text in here so that the change is visible. And yeah, okay, let's see the font size. Yeah, so you can see that initially it's like this, but as soon as we define transform rotate 90 degrees, it's rotating 90 degrees in the clockwise direction, right? And then we can have we can have it as 45 degrees, so it will move that way. Now, so that's rotate. You can have rotate. Yeah, so you can have rotate X as 45 degrees. So right now, okay, so right now you might not see the significant change. Like you can see that right now the height is about like 400 pixels, but as soon as I apply this, it's shrinking, because since this is a 2D object, like the div is 2D, that's why we are not able to see the change. But uh, similarly, if I have rotate Y, so you can see that it is shrinking that way, right? When we are doing it X with respect to x-axis, then the height is changing, now the width is changing. And if we do rotate Z, you will not see any change, because oh sorry, you will see a change that it is rotating, but uh, we generally use rotate because we don't generally have that thing, like we don't use 3D objects that often. So that's rotate property. And then, oh yeah, I think I missed that. You have translate Z as well, but if we do it as 1000 pixels, you will see no change, because there is nothing in the direction, because it's not a 3D object, so there will be no change. After this, we have scale. So what scale does is that it resizes the element. So by default, it is 1. So you can see that there is no change. The height is 400 pixel and the width is 400 pixel. But as soon as I do it, let's say 2, now the height is actually 800 pixel, and the width is 800 pixel, because it's getting multiplied by 2. It's 2 into the size of initial element. And similarly, you can shrink the element by, okay, and the thing with transform scale is that if I add some text here, let me show you. And let's make it as low left. Yeah, and let's remove this one now. You can see it's like this, but as soon as we apply the scale property, the size is getting reduced, but the space the element is taking is as it is. Like this space is occupied, but the element is not visible. It is string, but the space is occupied. So that's the scale property. And let's move this. Yeah. So we have done scale, rotate, translate. Next we have skew. So what skew basically does is that it changes the, like, it makes a rectangle a parallelogram. So let me show you how. We can have, let's say, 10 degrees. So let me add a bit of margin. Okay, so it's actually changing this div to a parallelogram. So you can understand, right? It's skewing it at 10 degrees. Okay, and similarly, let me increase the margin. Similarly, you can do it, let's say, 80 degrees. Oh, 80 degrees is too much. So let's do it 45 degree. So yeah, you get the point. But it, like, the transform property in specific is mostly used while creating animations, because most of the things get animated really easily, and it gives a really good effect. So you can use transform in animations. But yeah, so we had, let me add a comment here. Transform, we had scale, translate, we had skew, property, W3 school. Yeah, so you get the link, and here you can see what all different properties are. Like, there is translate 3D, but we're actually not dealing with a 3D element, so we're not doing that. And yeah, that's that. And so yeah, that's, so we have done transform as well as float and clear. So are there any doubts so far? I guess, okay, I'm assuming that as a no. So yeah, so we are done with this. Gaurav, do you want to add anything?
I don't think so, and I think we have taken a 1 hour and 20 minute session. So let's wrap it up if everything's covered. Did you discuss clear property?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, so does anyone have any questions about clear and like why would you use it?
Yeah, so float is basically used for creating layout, but then again, Flexbox is a better option. But yeah, we do need float sometimes. So yeah, it's good to learn it.
Okay, so okay, I have a question for you people. So we just now discuss the float. So why do you think float is not really good for making responsive websites? We also discussed responsiveness today, and like about placement of elements as you change the viewport. So like initially, float used to be the main thing which was used for doing this stuff, but now it's been replaced with other things such as Flexbox and CSS Grid. So why do you think that's the case? Anyone?
it's fine if your answer is wrong. I just want someone to like think and reply. All right. So I think you saw that using float, what it did was it took the element out of the parent element, right? So let's say you had a container inside which you had another small box and which you use float left. So the box, the container collapsed, but the box remained in that position. This could create a potential issue. That's why. Like, similar instances. What it now? Like it's quite messy to use float everywhere, and like when you're resizing stuff, then it's get really weird to use float because float will block your content, or like it'll make things very complicated, and that's why we use Flexbox and other things. Like Flexbox is very sophisticated in terms of creating responsive websites. It's quite good, and we also have CSS Grid, which is the latest way to do it. But like CSS Grid is slightly complicated because it makes use of certain things, and like if you're not really clear with the concepts of basic HTML, CSS, and like grid structures and all those, can become a pain. Okay. Does anyone have any question for today's session? Otherwise, we'll wrap it up. I take that as a no. Shivansh, then I think we can end the session today.
Yeah, I just want to add that people please do practice CSS, because CSS is like one of the most important thing in web development, because it beautifies the page. Until the page is not good looking, user will not feel like using it. Okay, so do focus on CSS, and maybe shortly we will start with JavaScript. So yeah, so do practice CSS, and because once we enter JavaScript, then we will move towards the logical thing, and then maybe backend. So then we will not focus that much HTML and CSS. Okay. So any questions, or otherwise we can end the session.
When we move on to JavaScript, we'll actually be entering programming logic, because JavaScript is a programming language unlike HTML, CSS. So you'll require to you'll have to know certain operators and all those things. So that should not be an issue since you've learned this much, and it's going to be quite. We will not really cover advanced JavaScript. We'll only limited to DOM related calculations or all those things. And okay, so would one of you unmute and reply? Would you like us to teach Python after like we cover basics of JavaScript? Because
and for class 9, 10, 10 students, Python will be taught in 11 and 12, and it will be in the boards.
Yeah. So like if you know Python right now, then once you're in 11 or 12, like it would really help you. The Python in 11 and 12 syllabus is quite primitive, but yeah, it's going to be a major booster. And I guess, and then you could make backends and all those things. I could also use JavaScript, but since Python is in your syllabus, I would advise that you learn Python in advance, so that you don't really have to like go through that initial trouble which people face in class 11 and 12. Like at least some people do, because it's a transition, right? So do you all want us to do that?
If you want to do Python, could you include GUI? That would be really helpful. At least for 11s and 12s, since we already know the stuff, so GUI would be nice.
What we intend on doing is that after, let's see, this depends upon whether we can cover that part. So let's say we can do till object-oriented programming in Python, because for making GUIs and all those things, you'll require classes and all those things. Anyway, so like if we can cover till then, cover till there. So after that, we'll begin with Django. And I think we also discussed about that Django project where we'll be making a clone of a student management system or something else like that. So yeah, so it's a web app basically. So web apps require a backend, right? So if you know Python and you can use Django, then you can make a fully functional website such as Flipkart or any other e-commerce websites, or even a payment portal or something else like that. Like our school website does have a payment portal, right? So you can make something like that. So does it answer your question?
Yeah.
And I just want to add that we will, I guess, not be able to get the time to cover like the GUI. I guess you are like in the class 12 project, I guess we are not allowed to use HTML, CSS. So they want us to code in Python only. So that GUI, if you are talking about Tkinter or like Kiwi, then that I guess if we get time after doing Django, then we may cover it. Otherwise, yeah, if you want, we like there are tons of tutorials, because I guess by the end of this session, the deadline for class 12 project will be over. So I would ask you to like, it will be better if you go to YouTube and you can learn it from there.
Yeah, that's fine.
Actually, since you brought this topic up, what kind of GUI applications are you looking forward to building? I can actually recommend a few libraries right now. Like, do you want to make a native app, or like, do you want to make a web app or something else like that?
Not exactly. Like basically, I was talking about the project which we have. Basically, stuff like multi pages and just learning the thing and then implementing it later.
Okay, so if you want to make a web app, like applications which run on website and have a client side, then you can use Django. Django is a bit, it has a steep learning curve. So if you want to if you want to really invest into Python and all those things, like you could try out Django after learning certain amount of Python, or you could try out Flask, which again is a module in Python. There are certain differences between Flask and Django, and if you want to know it, you can ask us in personal chats or something else like that. So yeah, these two will allow you to make web apps. Now you can make Android apps using Flutter. Okay, so yeah.
Flutter
you
is like you can make web apps with Flutter. Like Flutter is like everything. You can make Android, iOS, and web apps, all of them using Flutter. So that's a really cool technology which you should definitely learn.
Yeah, and if you want to make, let's say you want to make desktop apps, then you could use Tkinter. Now Tkinter is it's the most basic, like it's the most commonly used one for people who are like just new to GUI designing and all. But the thing is, it's not really it doesn't really give you that kind of a taste and feel for making for making applications. So you'll have to check out things a lot. So yeah, Tkinter is an option, and then you have Pipe, and then you have Kiwi. Okay, now Kiwi is intriguing. Now, the implementation of Kiwi can get complicated after a while. So because Kiwi like is a cross-platform, it's for cross-platform development. So yeah, you can definitely check out Kiwi if your teachers allow you to make a GUI application. Now Kiwi is very like you can see the kind of stuff you can make using Kiwi, right? And then I just go to the gallery and like there are different things which you could check out over here. And personally saying, I think if you want to make an application like that runs on Android apps and all, then I recommend that you begin with Kiwi. You'll have some problem initially, but there are like Kiwi tutorials by Viewport, which is very good. I showed this link address. Yeah, you can definitely check this out. It's not going to harm you if you learn something extra. So yeah, you can definitely check out Kiwi. And there's I know I'm going like slightly off the topic, but I'll tell you certain things which will be like helpful. So yeah, it's going to be helpful if you know Python file IO. object-oriented programming is a must, and you need to know how to use UDFs. And then object-oriented programming does include like classes and objects and all those things. And objects, you need to know like args and quarks, and probably these things are not going to be taught in school. So when we are covering, if we get time, we'll be covering Python. So we'll try to teach all the basic concepts at that time. So either you could wait till then, or you could check out again. You could check out how to like tutorials for Python on FreeCodeCamp. Is that fine with you all? And
Yeah.
like I only listened to a few of it. There are
You
some
can
other things
ask your teacher if she allows that you can use HTML and CSS. I guess she will not, or he or she will not, but you can ask if they allow, then it's good. You can use Django, or because even if you make a web app, most of the logical part you will be writing in Python only. So you can ask your teacher, and if she allows according to the board rules, then you can.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, this was about Python, and we'll definitely try to cover it if we get the appropriate amount of time. Does anyone have any other questions about like Python? And like we also discussed the project which you're going to make in a like this one, right? The student management system thing. We'll probably make the front end this month for like after we teach a bit of JavaScript, we will begin with the front end part and we'll make the login page. If anyone has any question, then they can ask, or else we'll end the meeting. All right, then I think that's it for today. Shivansh, I think we should end the meeting now.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining.